I'm not going to lie. Al, why are you sat there so seductive like?
It's Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park.
It's just how I sit on my couch seductively. So people walking by the window can just have a look, and I'll just be like...
Making my sexuality confused, man.
Have you guys seen the GIF of... You know when Alan Grant is pressed up against the Triceratops listening to it breathe?
Yeah.
Someone's done a GIF where he's on Jeff Goldblum.
It's amazing.
sprawled
And
on
he's
the sofa
breathing
to
up
him.
and down.
Oh,
yeah.
I've seen that,
It's
yeah.
so good. There are some really talented people with no direction in life out there. It's finally here. We've been wanting to do this one, well, I have for a while now. The Cacophony Sessions podcast presents the top 15 songs of 1987. Last year, for its 25th anniversary, we did a similar thing with another of our favourite years, 1991, and it's one of our most popular episodes. So, 35 years after these songs came out, and subsequently 35 years after many of us were born, it's time to get the ranking glasses out, as we dive deep into a strange world of big hair, drum machines, synths, and a lot of denim. My name is Dan Whittle, and as always, I have enlisted the help of my co-hosts to help us get to the bottom of the matter at hand. In our panel of 6 this evening, Tom?
Crunchy nut cornflakes are just Frosties for wankers.
You've done that one already.
Done that one before.
Oh shit, did I do that one already? Fuck.
Boo.
I'll find a different one.
No.
Sack him, Whittle, on the spot, sack him.
You don't get a second chance at a one-liner.
Okay, fine. I'll do it twice.
No, that's it, you failed
I'll do
now.
it twice.
This episode will go down in infamy as you just being terrible.
Let's be honest. Your failure is going to be way better than any of our actual one-liners, so don't worry about it.
Dan B?
In the theme of 1987, I'm going to go for this. You've had the same haircut since 1987. Will you at least think about changing it? I don't know. I'll mull it over.
Nice.
Mullet was a hair... Oh, I'll stop explaining the joke. It's fine.
It gets funny the more you explain it, I find.
That's what I thought, yeah. It's a type of fish, but also a haircut. No, sorry.
Martin?
Yeah, my name's Martin, and Crunchy Nut cornflakes are just wankers for cornflakes.
At least copy the quote properly.
That's way better.
The problem is he had too much time to mull it over.
James?
Due to a printing error, tomorrow's Daily Telegraph is full of water.
I really that's fucking brilliant.
And Alex?
Do you like bananas? Because I find you appealing. Or do you want Frosties instead?
Frosties instead.
If I could sum up those one-liners in one word, I would have to say they were great!
Or not.
I don't think you guys understood mine. That's what I'm a bit...
You're going to have to take us to a different place, Dan. Let's play Does It Slap?
Morbid Angel, where the slime live.
No, you're disqualified.
Yes?
Bullshit.
Who wants to go? Step into the arena of Does It Slap?
Don't you hate a podcast where the jingles are crap? So let's take a good song and ask, does it slap?
No, I'm going to put forward a suggestion. Is There Something I Should Know by Duran Duran? Come on. That is absolutely 100% a banger of all time. There's nothing wrong with that song. It is every single note is perfect. The melodies are incredible. The lyrics are great.
I'm pretty sure you've done this on another episode.
Yeah, I probably have.
I didn't agree with you then, and I don't agree now.
Oh, Tom! Oh, man!
There are so many good Duran Duran songs, and you pick that one.
Wow, 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 wow.
You don't like it? Oh, fuck's sake. You bunch of Philistines. Okay, so it doesn't slap, whatever.
It sounded like that actually did bother you, Martin.
It's fine, we've got plenty of fighting to get out of the way. So what we've done this evening, we each nominated 15 songs. We've then compiled all of those and ranked them all out of 10. Based on all 6 of us scoring it out of 10, it can score potential 60 points. We are tonight going to discuss the top 15 of those tracks. It's a little bit different as it was before than the list that I will post on the blog, simply on the basis that if an artist had 2 in the top 15, only the higher placing track will be discussed tonight. Before we do that, though, I'm sure there's been post-rock albums, post-hardcore albums, punk albums, festivals and things that people have been doing. So let's find out, shall we? Tom, what's new? What's hip? What's happening?
I haven't listened to quite as much new stuff lately because I've been working on finishing off my dissertation, which is due in a few weeks. But there's been a few albums. So I'm off to Arctangent next weekend. So I was going back through, as is James, and I was going back through bands that played there or have played or are going to play and listening to all of their albums. And so albums that are probably up there for Album of the Year that are completely unheard of. L1011's album, New Year's Eve, that's really good. It's got they're a 2-piece post-rock band, but they've got a lot of synth stuff in the new album, which is really cool. A band called A Tota So released an album called Lights Out, which is just bizarre. I've never heard a band try and mix it up quite as much on an album, but I absolutely love it. There's been some singles dropped but from a band called Pianos Become the Teeth. They're a band that were around about 10, 15 years ago. Their new single's great, and nobody's heard of many of these. On a completely different note, the new Regina Spektor album's quite good. And from a pop perspective, I was recommended a band, and I listened by a friend of mine. I'd started listening this morning and thought, actually, it's not my usual thing, but it's quite cool. And that is a band called Yumi Zuma that I think's probably quite up your street, Dan.
Our band name's getting worse.
The band names aren't getting worse. Most of the bands I've mentioned have been going for 10, 15 years. Oh, Elephant Gym are quite cool as well. That's a stupid name, but they're quite interesting. But yeah, so on a completely different note, Martin and I went to see the Strokes and Fontaines since we last spoke.
How are they doing?
Well, the Strokes, Julian Casablancas, I think there might be something wrong with him. If you read the reviews of their last couple of festival slots, like he's I think he's either drunk or high or something. He's still got the voice, but it was a bit like I went to see Paolo Nutini touring off his first album, and he was just absolutely wankered the whole way through the set, and it was just like I was getting sort of flashbacks to that watching Julian Casablancas. I think like the band are tight, but they don't sound into it. They didn't sound into it. So we saw them at Lytham Festival, and then they played, was it Transmat the day after, and they were pretty poor there as well, apparently. There's videos, he got a girl up to sing Ode to the Mets because she had a sign, and then she got up and she couldn't really sing, and then he was really rude to her afterwards, which I thought was a bit harsh. Fontaines were good live, and we would have got to see Wet Leg live as well if Martin had
for fuck's sake, man.
You had a lie.
I wanted to see Wet Leg too.
Yeah. 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, not 10:30. Not then getting stuck on the M5 for 4 hours.
Your driving was top notch though. You were like Mad Max.
I didn't have much choice when we got stuck on the M5. It took us 4 hours to get from Taunton Dean to the M50 junction. And I was like, I am not fucking sitting in this anymore. So we pulled off and ended up going up the A49. And that's a very long route to take to get to Blackpool. So I was sort of pedal to the metal.
I think I can hear the listeners rustling their maps as we speak.
Tom comes across as like this, affable guy who's all calm and everything, but getting behind the wheel, he is Mad Max. He's like, I am going to take every motherfucker out. On the way back home, in fact, where I feared for my life. I was like, my God, what are you doing?
So, Martin, what have you been doing other than going to see the Strokes and missing out on Wet Leg?
Well, the Strokes gig was interesting. I was forfeited with buying the first round because I was so late getting to Tom's to get picked up. And that first round cost me £139. Yeah, so yeah, I spent that. Anyway, I didn't mind. That was cool. I love the Fontaines anyway, but like, they were incredible. They sounded amazing, and the singer, I don't know his name, but he was just like wearing like this chav outfit, like just strutting around the stage like he owned the place. And they were a band like the only thing to compare them to was like imagine Oasis back in the heyday, like a bunch of council estate lads who'd formed the band, and they just were suddenly hitting it big, and they were just like strutting around like they knew what they were doing. They were amazing. They're incredible. I love the Strokes too. They started with "Is This It," which was absolutely fantastic. I fucking loved every second of what they played there. But I kind of liked. I remember Tom will say I probably got bored of me saying how much I loved Julian Casablancas' mullet. He had a mullet going on.
No, not again.
You mean he was contemplating it for a while?
I've literally just got why Whittle had the fish pun now. And I was honestly, I was so slow on the uptake, and I was, oh yeah, mullet, yeah. We talked about mullets, yeah.
I've had a good year. I've had a good year for live music. I went to see Nine Inch Nails at Eden, and that was actually for me quite a religious experience because, like, obviously I've been into Nine Inch Nails since 1989.
And you went dressed as a nun.
Yeah, I went dressed as a nun. But no, man, like it was just they sounded like their sound was so perfect. The mix was so perfect. They sounded like, record quality live. They were just professionals. It was really cool to see like Trent Reznor, one of my absolute heroes on stage, like just do his thing, and Atticus Ross as well, and Robin Fink, the guitar player from Nine Inch Nails, is an absolute fucking genius, and like he was just doing his thing. He was wearing his black suit. He came up and he was like playing for a bit, and then he'd lay back when all the synth stuff would happen, and they played like a lot of deep cuts as well. They played a B-side called Burn, which is off of a video game soundtrack, which is extremely heavy, extremely fucking it's total Nine Inch Nails, but like they played that, and I was just like, my God, I can't believe they played that track, and I got to see it. It was fucking incredible. So yeah, it's been a good year for live music for me, and I've just bought a ticket for Brian Jonestown Massacre playing Falmouth in January, which I'm so excited about. It's a long way away, but man, I get to see Anton live doing his psychedelia in Falmouth. I'm gonna get so wasted. They're pretty much the last band I kind of really need to see now before I've seen all of my favourite bands of all time, except Failure, obviously, but they might tour next year, but who knows. But see BJM is going to be a religious experience, just like Nine Inch Nails.
Al, did you go and see the Nine Inch Nails?
No, I didn't go and see the Nine Inch Nails.
Oh, did you not? I thought that would have been right up your street.
Oh yeah, no, you'd have thought, because I'm kind of into terrible music, and what the fuck, man? I do not like Nine Inch Nails. I did actually go to a gig though. It was a band called Dropout Kings. Awful band name, and quite frankly, I hate the band anyway. It was one of those ones where
well, a good sound endorsement then.
But no, it's basically like a cross between crunk and like metalcore. And I went because my brother pretty much bought me the ticket. Well, he bought me the ticket just so I would go and just have a mate's day out on Molly Plain in Plymouth. So yeah, it's okay. I was fucking wasted. I started drinking at like 2, and then like the gig started at like 8, 9. And yeah, like it was like full blown like mosh pits and stuff, but no one was doing it except me because I was so smashed. So like I was swinging my arms and leg round as I was doing full windmills and everything. Like the next time
it was full blown mosh pits, except no one was doing it but you.
Well, no, I got it started, but I did get it started, but it was about 4 or 5 people who it was just me and the guys I came with. So it was, yeah. absolutely wankered. The next day, I thought I'd been hit by a truck because like my arms and legs hadn't moved like that in years, so I couldn't lift my arms at all because they were just jelly. But yeah, it was really good. Absolutely smashed. They're awful band. Awful.
So, to summarise, don't go see the band, but do get smashed.
Look, if you kind of like crunk and you like metalcore and you think it's a good blend, good for you, but I do not. I've been listening to the Bad Religion autobiography. Like, I think I released a week or two ago. I got on Audible, so I've been listening to that. So I've been going for a massive Bad Religion kind of phase this week, for the last sort of week or two. Oh, that's so good. I love Bad Religion. Well, I got rather drunk on Friday night, and my dad decided to just go through all the oldies and stuff, and he basically turned me on to the opera singer, Mario Lanza.
Okay. Words I never thought I'd hear come from you on this
So I was absolutely smashed when I got home, like wankered. You know that point when you're really pissed and then decide to smoke a joint and it just goes completely pear-shaped into gurning territory? I was like that, and I just spent like 3 hours just listening to Mario Lanza and be like, what a riveting voice.
I'd pay to watch you do that.
Bringing a tear to my eye whilst I'm wasted, just like, he truly was a god amongst men. But yeah, that's kind of all I've been listening to, really. Honestly, look at Mario. If you've never heard of him, because I'd never heard of him, look at Mario Lanza. I've never heard a vocalist like him. Pavarotti says he's the best that's ever done it, so he's got to be all right.
I have heard Mario Lanza. My grandparents were into Mario Lanza, actually. So I was familiar with that as a kid. Not that I've looked into it as an adult, though, so I couldn't discern one.
I thought that was the bloke from Saved by the Bell.
No, you're talking about Screech.
AC Slater?
AC Slater, yes.
That's a good band name.
It is a good band name.
Yeah, other than that, I really didn't do much. I spent all day at home alone today, so just watched True Grit. I've never seen that before. That's quite a good film.
What, the Coen Brothers one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, anything with Jeff Bridges playing a cowboy or anything, turn the subtitles on within 30 seconds. That's the entire film unless you have subtitles on. What? It's just incoherent. At some point, the directors need to go, look, mate, no one can hear like what you're saying. It's fucking horrible. But yeah, I quite enjoyed that film, and but yeah, that's it really. I've been just playing loads of Call of Duty Vanguard and get my ass kicked by 12-year-olds.
Dan?
I ran a half marathon about 6 weeks ago, and I didn't die. Still here. Surprised. I don't know how. If you told me a year ago I would have done it, then I would have laughed at you. Yeah, completed it. 2 hours and 9 minutes. So it's a bit slow, but.
So how long is a half marathon in miles?
13.1.
Wow, that's fucking good. That's good work, man.
Thanks. And I've eaten non-stop since, so it's going really well.
Whee!
There's one song that I like at the moment.
Okay.
It's a new song. It's in the charts. It's number one at the moment. It's Afraid to Feel by LF System. It's just a really good song.
I haven't heard it.
You might have heard it just by osmosis because it's everywhere. But it's got a really weird sort of almost oriental twang to it. But I don't know how you would describe it. It's just fucking good. I think everybody would like it. When we were listening to that top 10 of the American chart a few months back, ever since then, I've been listening to a bit more chart music. And actually, there's a few decent tracks out there, but that one at the moment is number one, and it's very, very good.
Okay. I see Harry Styles followed up, as it was with Late Night Talking, which is another good single that's in the charts at the moment. I think Music for a Sushi Restaurant was another single as well, which is again another good song.
That Lizzo song is still brilliant.
Yeah, the album, I listened to the whole thing, and it's really good, but that is the best song on it.
I've had enough of that Harry Styles song now. I've heard it too much at work, and it's now gone to that fuck you Harry Styles sentiment for me. It's just...
It's also got to the point where now there are like lounge covers of it floating around on playlists I hear at work all the time, and yeah, it's nightmarish, and I'm therefore standing even more firmly to my position of not making it a banger. I'm very, very glad we did that.
I felt that way about quite a few songs on the list tonight.
There's bangers like Eye of the Tiger you can listen to non-stop.
Exactly. or like Where the Slime Live.
Jim, what have you been up to?
Not very much. I've been to a few gigs. I got to go and see A Man.
Now that is a band name. Now that is a band name. Just a dude in his
Did
microphone.
he do a song called About a Dog?
Literally just went blank. It was Chuck Reagan, the legend that is Chuck Reagan.
Prefer A Man, to be
It's a
honest.
stage name, is it?
Got to see a man.
So that was fantastic.
Sunny dude.
And I had a surprise. My mate had a spare ticket to go and see Social Distortion, so that was pretty good.
I went to see a man on stage. That's fucking brilliant. But Social Distortion, though, they're pretty important. You know, they're like a very influential band in the alternative rock universe.
They are. They're amazing.
I quite like them, but I think they've played the same song for like 20 years.
Well, yeah, they never bring out albums. They're just like they tour when they start to run out of money. But it's fine because they're amazing live.
And that's what's important.
And this was like the final 2020 hangover. This is one that was postponed from 2020 into 21 and then postponed again into this year.
They really need the money.
I'm adamant their singer makes all of his money from punk documentaries. If you watch any punk documentary released in the last 15 years, he's like one of the main interview guys. Like, you know, it just changed the genre. He's just that guy. Like,
I also went to a gig. I went to Margate and I saw, as well as Sister Sledge and Roy Ayers, I witnessed in the flesh George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic,
Wow.
which was absolutely incredible. So they've got a lot of their kind of second and third generation involved now. So a lot of their sons and daughters and granddaughters, grandsons, they're all involved in the band. So it's a mixture of old stuff. I think they closed with Alice in My Fantasies, which is like a proper early 70s rock kind of classic staple of theirs. And Michael Hampton, who is not the original guitarist, Eddie Hazel, but he came in and replaced him for a while he couldn't be in the band due to health issues. He's still with the band and he was incredible. But they've also got rappers and it's a real interesting mix of contemporary music with their old stylings, and it really works. The energy is just incredible at their gigs.
what's the pit like?
There was no mosh pit. But it got pretty heavy, and there was a lot of dancing in the front row, which I was in. I was so close to being on stage with George Clinton. I was selected by his granddaughter, Scotty Clinton. She picked me out, and we were going to go over the gate, but security had an issue with letting the public on stage, so they didn't let anyone on. But I would have been on stage with George Clinton, so I'm sorry to report that I can't give you that story, but I nearly got it. I also saw Gary Newman. Not sure if I mentioned that on the last episode, who was excellent. He's got so much energy for a man of his age. And as I said previously, he does have the worst wig in music. It's even worse in the flesh. But you know what?
Gene Simmons.
No,
Gene Simmons. He always has that.
But yeah, Gary Newman, he's kind of updated his classics, Our Friends Electric, Metal Airlane, those kind of things. To a more industrial sound. So he's kind of taken from Nine Inch Nails, little bits of Bowie as well, the kind of Earthling era and the Outside era in the 90s for Bowie. So Gary Newman's updated his sound. It's really good. Recommend seeing him. I think he's in America on tour now, though.
That's the interesting thing about Gary Newman is he actually was an influence on both Bowie and Nine Inch Nails. The Nine Inch Nails influence is totally obvious, but the Bowie influence is not quite so obvious, but it is there.
Yeah,
and he's almost like kind of gone full circle in that the music that he makes is influencing the people that he influenced.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think the most interesting thing about Gary Newman is that he was actually really against the advent of the automobile.
Here in my car.
At least someone got it, Mark.
Yeah.
You're really old.
No, I got it. I just didn't
That's
like
Gary
it.
Oldman.
In terms of releases, I haven't got around to listen to Jack White's second of his releases this year yet. I still really like the first one.
What was his first one like?
It's interesting. There's a hip hop collaboration with Q-Tip. It's kind of really energetic blues rock. Apparently, the new one is more kind of mid-tempo, a bit more ambient. So I'm not sure which one I'll prefer.
Is he still making great music? Because I haven't listened to Jack White for a long time, and he's one of my greatest heroes.
Yeah, I'd say it's the best thing he's done since probably. I really enjoyed Lazaretto in 20.
Yeah, Lazaretto was great.
Yeah, it's that kind of vibe, I would say. I also checked out Beyonce's new album, which I think is going to be my album of the year. For me, Beyonce has had lots of interesting releases, but for me, it's never quite become good enough to be considered a classic. I think this one is. I think it's banger after banger after banger. There's a song on there called Virgo's Groove, which is incredible. Sounds like it's kind of like funky space reincarnation by Marvin Gaye for 2022. She's gone back to the 90s and drawn a lot of house influence. Break My Soul, the big single that's everywhere, is they say it's a sample of Robin S. Show Me Love, but I can't really hear it as a sample. I see it as more of an interpolation. There's a bit of controversy around the song Energy as well, because she sampled Khalees's Milkshake. So Khalees has been on Instagram, I think it was Instagram or maybe TikTok, saying that she wasn't aware of it, and it's doubly annoying for her because Pharrell Williams actually screwed her out of the rights to that song anyway. So she's annoyed that A, she won't get anything from being credited, and B, that she wasn't even told that that song was going to be used as a sample on that song. So she's just a bit annoyed at Beyonce.
Fuck her. She just needs to read her contracts.
I think Khalees is an interesting artist. I really loved Little Star of 2006. So I think I might do a video for the YouTube channel on top 5 Khalees songs. I've also started working on a top 5 of David Byrne hidden gems, which will be up on the blog soon too. So I think that this is an appropriate time to plug the blog at cacophonysessions.wordpress.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at CACSessionsPod. The YouTube channel, Cacophony Sessions, is also going to be updated soon too. We may even be launching a Patreon very soon. Going to be looking into doing monthly bonus episodes that are on a smaller scale that you'll be able to access if you join the Patreon or Patreon. Apparently nobody says Patreon, but yeah, just me.
Just getting in there quick. If you do a David Byrne top 5 hidden gems and Nothing from My Life in the Bush of Ghosts is on there, I'm coming for you.
There is a song called Regiment, which is on that album, and it's fucking incredible. So yeah, that'll be on there.
Good. I was going to have words if it wasn't.
I love that album. It's incredible. The reason we're here tonight, we are going to be ranking all these songs that we have put forth for discussion this evening. There are 75 in total. Each one has been scored out of 10. Some of us chose to use decimal points, some of us didn't. Now, the songs that we'll be discussing tonight are the top 15. As I mentioned earlier, if an artist has 2 in the top 15, we'll only be discussing the highest placed one, which will free up a space for another artist. Before we get into the rankings, I did briefly want to just get 2 things from each person. Firstly, I want to understand what we think is going to win, predictions, whether we all predict the same one or not, or we all have different thoughts. And I also want to know what each individual person's favourite song is, so that you can discuss it. And if it doesn't come up, then we all can sense your sadness without it needing to be actually said. We'll go with Jim first. Jim, what's your prediction for tonight, and what's your favourite song?
I think the song that's going to win it and win it all is Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. Because everyone loves that song.
We could rickroll everybody.
Yes, Jimmy, yes.
And the song I really would love to win, but I know won't even be in the top 15, is Real Love by Swans.
Dan?
As long as it isn't Real Love by Swans or the other 2 by the Swans that James nominated, I think I'll be all right, to be honest. I don't know. I've given 2 songs a 10. I gave Bon Jovi Wanted Dead or Alive a 10 and Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson a 10. Are they my favourites? I don't know. They were the ones I gave the highest score. Beastie Boys, No Sleep Till Brooklyn might win.
Alex?
At first I was thinking You Suffer by Napalm Death was going to come number 1 because it's awesome. Realistically, it's probably going to be a Beastie Boys song. I'm quite intrigued to see, to be honest.
Martin?
I hope Sign of the Times wins. To be fair, I think it is probably one of the greatest songs of all time, in my opinion. But I also secretly hope a Beastie Boys song wins because just of my love of the Beastie Boys. But Sign of the Times is my jam. It's my 1987 song.
Do we drink if somebody else is going on about Prince? I don't know. Where do we stand on that?
Yeah, drink.
Yeah, take a drink anyway. And Tom, your thoughts, please.
My prediction to win it is going to be No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys. I think I said that we have a group chat, and I mentioned that I thought one of those would win it weeks ago, because I think it's something that, as we know from previous Album of the Years and the 91 episode, a track that we all like will do better than one that somebody hates, and I don't think anyone hates any of it. My favourite, it wasn't my favourite on the nominations before I started listening back to them. My favourite before was Could You Be the One by Husker Du, but my favourite is Schizophrenia by Sonic Youth, because Thurston Moore's guitar tone is just so far ahead of its time, and there's some things, even though it's not very well produced, there's some guitar tones in that track that still hold up today.
I thought I had all of my ideas down, and Tom kept saying, like, what about this track? Husker Du. What about Sonic Youth? This came out that year. And every time he messaged me, it was like, that's actually the best song of 1987. Tom was my kind of like, what's the word? He's my little goblin.
Your muse, your inspiration.
I thought you were looking for Muse, but you've gone for Goblin.
We will delay this no further. I will reveal the 15th place song. It scored a total of 45.8 points. It's a single that did not actually get its highest charting position until 1991. It was on the band's 5th full-length studio album entitled Document. It is, of course, alternative rock band R.E.M., and the song is called The One I Love. My notes say that it is perhaps the first traditional R.E.M. song that they'd later become known for in the 90s, when they had hits like Losing My Religion, Everybody Hurts. Sounds ahead of its time. It's got some really good production. The harmonies on the fire kind of chorus part, excellent. I don't know if Michael Stipe has ever sounded better, to be honest. What does everybody else think?
It's some of the best guitar playing I've ever heard in my entire life. It's an incredible song. It's beautiful in every single way. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's like one of those songs where you kind of go where it's just 3 minutes of pure perfection, and there's no like overblown like nonsense to it. It's just like every instrument, every member of the band, every part of that song is just, it does what it needs to do, and then it goes away, and it just does what it needs to do, and then just shuts up, and it's perfect for that. And it's a great pop song, actually.
Yeah,
I agree. It's a great song. I think I gave it 8 out of 10, which is, I think, is a pretty solid score. The one thing I said about it on our group chat was I was just really surprised that it was on this list, not because it's not very good, but because I couldn't believe it was written in 1987. I was convinced it was mid-90s.
We all forget that like R.E.M. were actually a alternative rock band doing pop songs, and that's quite a big thing because like there was this, late 80s, early 90s, there was this cusp of like kind of really alternative bands like making really great pop songs, like Jane's Addiction did Been Caught Stealing in 1991, I think. And it's just like, really great hooks.
You have to credit Peter Buck with some of that as well. The guitar work.
Yeah.
It really forces the vocals to be a prominent point in the song.
Yes, it does.
It really accentuates what Michael Stipe is doing vocally, I think.
The master of an instrument is somebody who can go, I'm not going to overflash. I'm going to like do the most minimal thing I can and hold back and just sit back in the like background and like do my thing. But it's so perfect.
Al, this is actually your choice. What are your thoughts?
To be honest, it feels like I'm picking a lot of REM whenever we have stuff to pick at the moment.
Losing My Religion was one of your choices, I think, in the 91 episode. That did really well.
This is our punk guy.
I just think REM are a pretty decent band, and I just thought it was a really good single, and it was just really catchy. Most REM singles, I think you'll find if you listen to it like once on the radio, like on a drive into work or something, you end up humming it for most of the day. I don't think to be honest, I don't think this is one of their stronger ones actually, but I think I prefer the verses more than to the chorus, like the fire, I quite like that, but for me personally, I just like the verses, The good thing about REM, they always end up scoring higher because they're very, not middle of the road, but they just happen to be that exact genre where most of us tend to agree with. It's quite good. I think that they tend to do well because of that. They're not particularly extreme in going too far in this direction. It's very central, catchy rock music, and people who aren't that into music like them, people that are into music seem to like them as well.
Yeah, Alex is right that it's not middle of the road, but I do think it's not all that far off middle of the road. It's fine. It's catchy guitars. I've heard the song 1,000 times, and I'm happy to listen to it, but I wouldn't put it on at home.
I think it's important to note that REM, and particularly in the 80s and early 90s, were really popular in Britain, and in America nobody really cared. And I remember when I was working at the Marine Biology Association, one of the lead researchers was spent a lot of time in Georgia, where REM are from, and they were playing like tiny little dive bars, and then they'd come over to the UK and play stadiums, which was a bit. I think actually, weirdly enough, I'm not going to talk about the guitar on this track. I think the most important REM member is actually Bill Berry, the drummer. And the reason why he's the most important, is if you listen to REM's albums with Bill Berry and then after he left, they never made anything as good after he left. So he left in the early 90s. He left before Up came out. And yeah, I don't think they've ever done anything as good without him. So I think I think his influence on this and their stuff in 91. I think their best album came out in 92, with Automatic for the People. But yeah, I think it's important to give him a nod.
Totally right. Yeah, after Bill Berry, they didn't really do much else that was worth anything.
In 14th place, scoring a total of 46.3 points. It's one of Tom's picks. And this is a song that is from the 1986 album of the same name, written, performed mainly, I think, completely by himself, actually, by a singer named Colin Verncombe, also known as Black. The song is called Wonderful Life. It's a marvellous synth pop, sombre, sarcastically hopeful. It really sounds like not a lot from the time, but similarly, it sounds completely at home in 1987. It's a song that, for me, was actually played at my dad's funeral, so it has a lot of kind of personal connotations for me. But I've always loved the song, and there's always something magical about the juxtaposition of his kind of almost sarcastic, monotone vocals against this really quite vibrant and almost exotic sounding synth backing. It's a great song. Tom, one of your favourites?
Yeah, I picked it because it's of my picks. It's probably the one I'd rank. It is the one I ranked the lowest, actually, of everything I picked, apart from one other. But I think the thing with this song is my parents had a CD that we used to listen to of like 80s hits. And I think the fact that this had such a different tone, it always stuck with me. And it's the synth line over the intro is just really nice. And I think it's got a good chorus hook. And I quite like the darkness of it. I think it's got, it just sounds like miserable. I guess it appeals to all the music I like is miserable and Scottish sounding, isn't it?
Colin Vercombe was English.
He's English, yeah.
But it sounds Scottish.
It's that sort of it's the same thing that happened later on with bands like the Delgados and stuff like that. They just managed to sound miserable over happy music, and it's just something that I just like that.
Do you think if we put the Highland Fling on, Tom would just automatically go into the Highland Fling without even thinking about it?
No, because it's happy.
Stick Leonard Cohen over the Highland Fling, and you've got Tom's all-time banger, I think.
Speaking of which, and that's exactly the reason that I love this song by Black so much, because it reminds me a lot of the sort of stuff Leonard Cohen was doing in the 80s.
Yeah,
like that sort of synth backing track. It's like it could have been on anything on Various Positions or I'm Your Man.
Yeah.
With Leonard Cohen doing the vocals over it. And I do love the vocals as they are on the track, obviously, but yeah, it was a solid track. I scored that pretty highly, I think.
I think I scored this one of my highest. But yeah, I love this song. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, you scored it an 8.7.
Yeah, I just really, 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 really like this song. It kind of, it's going to sound, this is a bit of an in thing, but it sounded a bit like Gigolo Galleon, didn't it? With the crappy tropical keyboards from Steve.
Shout out to Steve Partridge, a former band member of ours. We once played in a song that we decided needed synth steel drums over the songs.
Yeah, nothing like some steel drums on the keyboards. But yeah, I just think it's an absolutely brilliant song. It was kind of weirdly bleak, but in a nice 80s uplifting way. I just thought it was great, yeah.
Colin Vercombe, sadly no longer with us as of 2016, I believe. Known as a one-hit wonder. The album is actually quite good. I have listened to it, but he's not really known for anything else. And every time, he was quite a independent artist, and I don't think he ever really wanted to write songs that were going to be massively popular in the manner that this became. But certainly, what a hit to have.
I was just looking at my scores, and I only gave this a 6. I probably was the lowest out of everybody.
Probably were then, yeah.
And I'm just sort of listening to it again and almost doubting myself. I do agree that it's got this really nice, somber, yet sort of... It seems like you're going through a hard time, but you can get through it. That's sort of the vibe I get from it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I do like it. It wasn't like we talked a bit before about some of us doing decimals and some of us not in our scoring. So this was a high 6, if that makes sense. I probably could have gone even higher. I do like it. I've got nothing more to say other than, I like the feel of the song, and I can see why you all liked it. I don't disagree.
I didn't like it. I loved it.
Martin, anything to add?
I think Al said the best thing about it is very bleak. It's extremely bleak, but it's fucking gorgeous in that sense. There's a lot of feeling there, but there's also none, if that makes sense.
Quite a popular choice with everyone. That one, Dan, you did score it the lowest, but as you've said, you potentially could have scored it higher. We'll move on to the next selection, which is in 13th place, scoring a total of 46.6 points. It is the lead single from second studio album Floodland. It's one of Jim's picks, and it is the Sisters of Mercy with their song This Corrosion.
It's a banger, isn't it? And yeah, going back to what Martin was just saying about bleak but emotional but emotionless. It's just a really cool track. Like lovely synths, nice and 80s. I love it.
Yeah, it's the best thing Jim Steinman's ever done.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. I struggle to explain why I like Sisters of Mercy, because musically there's not all that much going on, and I'm not sure why I like it, because I don't like any other bands like Sisters of Mercy, but I love Sisters of Mercy.
Which version did everybody listen to? Did everybody listen to the... Because there's a 4.5 minute single version. There's like an 11-minute album version, and then there's a 9-minute 12-inch. And the copy of Floodland that I got from Apple Music has the 9-minute version that I listened to.
9.5 minute. That's the one I had.
I listened to 4:29.
I actually deducted 0.5 from this song for being 9 minutes long, because I thought it didn't really add anything to the song. I actually scored this the lowest out of everyone. I scored it 5.6. I thought that I really liked the choral sections, and I think the production from Jim Steinman is really good. But when it comes to the meat and potatoes of the song, I just didn't think it was as good as other songs of the era that I've heard. I thought it sounded a bit flat. I thought I've got here that the vocal performance, I thought, is a subpar Berlin era Bowie. I've also written, it's like Robert Palmer or Robert Pfister, the Robert Pfisters of Mercy. There's something that didn't click for me.
Yeah, but it's the 80s, so like most music is just going to be guys that can't really sing, but because they're a bit fashionable, they manage to front a band. And they're kind of all sing like this, because they can't really sing, but it kind of sounds like this to music. Billy Idol made a career on it.
Don't you talk to Billy Idol that way.
I fucking love Billy Idol, you know.
The funny thing about this band is that the one chosen for the band because of how they looked was Patricia Morrison, the bass player and backing vocalist. Was because Sisters of Mercy started as a band, as a completely different band, and released an album a few years before this one, and then basically the singer sacked the entirety of the rest of the band, or they left and did something else, and then he reforms the band with one other member, and this track, the lyrics are all about how he hates the old band members. And it's, I was quite surprised because when James picked this one originally, I was looking at it going, why has he not picked Dominion?
We've discussed Dominion before.
We have discussed Dominion before, and I was like, why has he not picked Dominion? And then I got to about 2 or 3 minutes in, and it actually kicks into to a bit more of a song, and I was like, okay, now I know why he's picked it.
Why did he not pick Dominion? Sorry, I'm gonna stop doing that now. It's just like every song in the 80s sounds like that.
Dan, any thoughts on Sisters of Mercy?
It's cool. It's fun. It's 80s.
It's cool. It's fun.
I listened to the 9.5 minute version, and like Tom, thought it took a little bit of getting going. I was going to give it, I was like ready to go 4, and then 4 out of 10. And then, like you said, it sort of kicks in, and I'm like, okay, this is fun. It's just hair, stupid. I mean, I didn't watch the video until a minute ago. Wow, that's some 80s ass perm going on right there. I don't even know if it is a perm, but it's crazy. The song is silly in a good way. It's 80s. I think the German, what did you call it?
It sounds like David Bowie in Berlin in the late 70s. But
that's right. It does.
I thought it was like a kind of poor impression of it. Really, I didn't think it carried the same weight. I think maybe I've been too harsh on this song. Or maybe if I give it another listen, it's certainly got things that I love in other songs. Maybe it just didn't click with me at the time I was reviewing it. I've heard it a couple of times.
Try the shorter one because I haven't heard the long one.
I'm looking at the single version.
It doesn't outstay its welcome.
It's 4 minutes shorter than Halloween. That's something.
Well, we won't discuss other songs because they may potentially come up later.
I'll be surprised if that comes up later.
That means Halloween top 10.
It should be. The song's amazing.
Yeah, it should be. I agree.
I did really like it. And
well, it's got a chance. That's 3 out of 6. Like.
That's a 3 10 out of 10.
I think I rated it all right as well.
We've just got to avoid the Whittle 2 and then we're all right.
In 12th place, scoring 46.7 points. It's a song from the second full-length and final studio album by punk rock band Big Black, one of Jim's picks again. The song is called Bad Penny. It's post-hardcore, and it's accessible, but it's still got that punk attitude. I really like this song. Jim, tell us more about this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you know Steve Albini, you've probably come across Big Black.
I know
at some
Steve
point.
Albini. He's one of the greatest producers of all time.
Yeah, exactly that. And I put this in. This is a great album. This is one of the best songs on it, and I put it in so that we'd have a chance to talk about Steve Albini.
Do you want to tell the listeners what the name of the album is, Jim?
Go on, Jim.
Songs about fucking.
Yeah, songs about fucking.
Songs about fucking.
Yeah, songs about fucking.
It's said to be Steve Albini's favourite album that he's produced, for Big Black anyway. It's but the band had already decided to split up before the album was recorded. So sadly we didn't get any more from them, because I certainly like this. It's a kind of a blend of post-hardcore, bit of noise rock. It's certainly... It chugs along and does what it needs to do without overstaying its welcome. It's quite. I think I haven't listened to the whole album, but the whole album's only about half an hour long, and the songs aren't very long. This is punchy, effective. It sounds ahead of its time.
Just to let you know that if you want more of Big Black, it's not quite the same, but it's nearly, because it's also angry Steve Albini shouting in a microphone. There is the band Shellac.
Oh, we know Shellac.
I've seen them live. They're fantastic.
Why am I not surprised, Tom? Why am I not surprised whatsoever? You've seen Shellac live.
Yeah, of course I have.
Steve Albini is one of the greatest, most influential people in alternative rock. He's just an incredible person. I mean, come on. Like Nirvana's best album, which is In Utero, right? And I will argue with people constantly about this.
I agree with you.
It is In Utero, was produced by Albini, and he didn't even really give a shit about it. He was just kind of like, yeah, I produced this album, whatever. He's worked with Failure. He's just a fucking great guy.
Oh, of course he's worked with Failure.
I have a very controversial opinion about Steve Albini.
Oh, go on.
So I really like Big Black.
Get the
Big
gloves
Black,
on.
And I really like Shellac, but every great album that Steve Albini has produced would have been great with any other producer. He has one of the most minimal production techniques. So there's a Japanese band called Mono, and he produced their third album, and it's the worst album it's the worst produced album that they've recorded. Like, I think his production style doesn't work every time, and I think he only has one method. And I think that In Utero was great because of the pain that Kurt Cobain was going through, and the fact that they were an actual band and Dave Grohl had been involved in the writing process, not because of Steve Albini. There you go, controversial opinion. That's a hill I'm going to die on.
My controversial retort is that, like, Bush's second album, Razor Blade Suitcase, was only good because of Albini's production. Yeah, second-rate songwriting, but great production. And that's why the album sounded great. So, yeah, I think actually his production technique was enough to bring a sub-average album out of, like, you know, that place into something great.
Dan, you scored this one a 5.
I think there's the bit in the middle where he's talking about like fucking people's girlfriends and just in speech, and it's just sort of a bit meh, like it just sounds a bit lame to me. That sort of put it down a bit. It's actually, in a weird way, quite similar to a lot of music that I like.
Yeah, that's why I kind of drew attention to it, because I thought this would have been up your street, really.
Yeah, if you like, as I do, as it's the greatest soundtrack of all time, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack, then you'd think I would like
this would be right on
It's that sort of track. It's almost, I think I can see how this is the beginning of that, if you like. This is 1987. This is the start of that sort of sound. It's almost not quite punk. It's almost post-hardcore. It's not quite there. It's so raw that almost it's not polished enough for me. Does that make sense? It might not.
Yeah.
It's got bits of it that I definitely go, yeah, I would like this, but it's almost not quite there for me.
Al, any thoughts?
No, not really. I mean, I did like the song. I think it's pretty good. I wasn't sure about the effect they put on the vocals too much. It sounded a bit... I don't know. The problem is I can't think of any bands off the top of my head that do sound like it, but it sounds like a lot of bands sound like this. You know, when they put that the exact effects on the guitars and stuff, and the exact effects on the vocals that he's got on it. So it sounded to me like a lot of alternative songs I've already heard, but I just thought it was a good one. I thought it was catchy, and I just liked it. I thought it was a pretty good song. I can't remember what I scored. I think it was quite high, but I thought it was good. Good song. In hindsight, 7 out of 10, I reckon. I don't know what I gave it. That's what I'm going to say now, and I'll die on a hill.
7.9, actually.
Really good then. No, I'll change my opinion as you tell me. Actually, it's incredible. It's the best song I've ever heard.
Speaking of best songs that I've ever heard, I have a feeling that we may hear that phrase again, because in 11th position, and scoring a total of 47.4 points, it's one of Martin's choices, and brace yourself, Tom, it's a Scottish alternative rock group. The band is the Jesus and Mary Chain, and the song is April Skies. Martin, do you want to say that it's the best song you've ever heard now and just get it out of the way, or do you want to...
It's the best song I've ever heard in my entire life. No, I don't really need to say any more about it. April Skies by Jesus and Mary Chain. End of story. It's just beautiful from start to finish. It's simple. It's just, it does what it needs to do. It's just like everything about it is perfect.
It sounds like every alternative song released post 95. You know what I mean? It's very ahead of its time. I think it sounds very. This the sort of era of like Manic Street Preachers and stuff. That's for me. That's what it sounded like. You know.
Imagine how many bands can go out there and go like, we're not very good musicians, but we are going to write the best fucking alternative rock song of all time, and they do it. Tom, what are your opinions?
My problem with this album, so I love this album, don't get me wrong, I like this album a lot, but
I love how you say that so many times. Like, I love this album, but my problem with it is...
I do have a problem with it. The thing is, like, we've got to analyse stuff and realise so often it's easier to work out why a song is...
Tom, can you stick to the song, not the album? Because Darklands is a great album, right? But we're not talking about the album. We're talking about the song, April Skies by Jesus and Mary Chain.
I had 2 notes. This track sounds like what would happen if Rick Ocasek was manically depressed.
That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just, and the other note that I had was, I wish they'd recorded this in the 90s with decent percussion sounds.
I thought you might have a problem with the drums. In fact, in my notes, I've got that the drum intro sounds almost identical to Shawn Michaels' entrance music.
Yeah.
So, like, you play the start of it, I'm expecting it to go, H-B-K, I think I'm cute.
The Jesus and Mary Chain started out with drum machines. It was just like 2 brothers with guitars, and they didn't have bass or drums at all. They started out with literally just vocals and guitars. That's all they had. And so, like, for them to, on their second album, create something as fucking beautiful and as amazing as April Skies, like, with that, just guitars and, like, a drum machine and, like, you know, just the most simplistic equipment is just beyond. It's just, I don't know, man, it's the greatest song of all time ever written.
Oh, fuck off. You say every song is the greatest song of all time, and every artist is the greatest artist of all time, and the best guitarist of all time. At some point, we're going to have to make you write a list, and we're going to hold you to the list. You're only allowed one greatest artist of all time.
Music wouldn't be the same
Yeah,
today.
but April Skies by the Jesus and Mary Chain,
It is influential.
it's way more advanced than the song itself actually is.
It's very mid-90s.
It's extremely
there's a lot of Britpop in there.
I don't know, Martin's been
I can
coasting
hear
off pure
Britpop.
enthusiasm for too long. We need to catch him.
Funny fact about this album, and the reason the drums sound awful, it is a drum machine on this record, but they sacked Bobby Gillespie from Primal Scream directly before recording this album. So they decided that a drum machine was better than Bobby Gillespie.
Well, but it is. Yeah, a drum machine is better than Bobby.
I don't know. Primal Scream's career might suggest.
Well, yeah, but I think a lot of Primal Scream's success is down to Andy Weatherall and the remixes that he did.
Yeah, I'd rather a drum machine over Bobby Gillespie on drums, to be fair.
I liked it. Good song.
And a catchy tune.
Solid.
Yeah, solid.
As a rock.
position, scoring 47.4 points. It is one of Tom's picks. It's the title track from the album Surfing with the Alien. It's the instrumental of the same name by American guitarist Joe Satriani. Beginning with some crowd noise, it almost kind of sounds like it switches over into some futuristic guitar radio station from deep space. It's a great song. The tapping and shredding that he does on it is phenomenal. It's got a lot of character. It's a really excellent song. Tom, is this your favourite of the Joe Satriani tracks that were nominated? I think you scored it slightly higher than you did with Satch Boogie.
I do prefer this one. I think, although weirdly enough, it's when I listened back to this, I was saying, why did I not pick Always With Me, Always With You? Because that's better than this.
Yeah. Why did you not pick that, Tom? Tom, why did you not pick that? That was a fucking...
Because I forgot about it, all right? There's a few of these on this list. So I picked this one because I saw Satriani live touring Super Colossal. That would be, 2006?
You saw Satch live. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I think I probably saw him on the same tour.
Yeah, I saw him in Cardiff. The thing I like about this is that this track becomes almost timeless because it doesn't have vocals to date.
That was in my notes, actually. It works better as an instrumental.
Yeah, it's why a lot of the music that I like is instrumental, because I think vocals often tie something to a time period and define what the track is about. Whereas not having vocals, but having a strong melody allows a bit more interpretation for your listener. But this song, the reason I like this one more than Satch Boogie particularly is because it's got more of a vocal hook. It's got more of a hook, like a lead melody line that's a bit more recognisable, that's instantly recognisable and everybody knows it. Yet he still goes off and demonstrates his musical chops. It's also interesting that I think virtually all of the album, bar one track, which isn't this one, all the solos are improvised, which is even more insane.
This one was originally recorded differently. The Eventide 949S that they used broke down and they couldn't recreate the original effects, so they abandoned the original version and basically decided to make this one instead. So it's not improvised, it's based on something that they previously couldn't recreate.
Yeah, his solos, he claims, are all improvised around a central sort of idea, because that allows him to improvise it live. And like this one's to a drum machine, but then they overdubbed the cymbals live. Imagine being the drummer having to do that. You've got a drum machine and then you've just got to play the cymbal part.
I can see an upside.
That's just bizarre.
Just a bit more time between to just really give it some weight.
It sounds like your dream gig, Al.
Yeah, it sounds quite good, actually. I think this is my favourite Joe Satriani song.
Yeah, I think it's mine as well.
I was quite surprised James didn't pick it. Right? I'm surprised he did Satch Boogie over this one.
Well, I didn't pick it because Tom picked it.
Ah, that would explain it then.
And that's why I picked Satch Boogie, because it's the next best.
Yeah, no, it was a good one.
You forgot Always With Me, Always With You as well, didn't you?
No, I like it. It just doesn't demonstrate how good a guitarist Joe Satriani is. It's great, but I can play it easily, so it's not hard.
You could play every Blink-182 song, but it doesn't, or a Green Day song, and it doesn't make it a bad song.
But Joe Satriani is about how great a guitarist he is.
Yeah, it's all about the virtuosity
and how he's able to create these melodies whilst shredding the shit out of his Ibanez.
He's one of the greatest guitar players of all time, and if it wasn't him, he was probably responsible for me learning to play guitar.
He's not responsible for me picking up a guitar in the first place, but he's responsible for me getting to the point of being a moderately competent guitarist.
I think it's his personality as well. He's like kind of he's a teacher. He taught Steve Vai.
He taught Kirk Hammett at one point. He taught
Kirk Hammett, and also the guy at Primus,
Larry
Lalonde.
Larry Lalonde, yeah.
Satch taught those guys, and like when you think like someone of the stature of Steve Vai got taught by Satriani, you think, well, how fucking good do you have to be to like teach Steve Vai how to play guitar? You know, he's fucking up there with like Van Halen. You know, he's great.
You just kind of go, wow, 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 wow.
And the only thing that I think is a real shame about Satriani is that he's tried to keep doing this like Surfing with the Alien-esque stuff, and he did one album of experimentation with Engines of Creation, and that album is the best thing he's done since Surfing with the Alien, and he's just carried on doing like the same stuff, and he's rolling out the same album again and again, and he needs to do something new because it got boring about 10 years ago.
Seeing him live was really impressive for about the first 20 minutes, and I think he played like a 3.5 hour set, and thank God it was seated.
But back on topic, like Surfing with the Alien is where Satriani got like that was his seminal track on his seminal album, and that's kind of where it all started.
100%. That is where he fucking totally got started, and like, yeah, I agree, totally agree. I remember we had like a bit of an argument about who was going to choose Satch for 87. Three of us, and I was like, I want to choose Satch.
As with a couple of songs tonight, Dan, you've scored this the lowest again.
You bastard! Bastard!
You're being the most tight with your point scoring.
I wonder, like, whether my scores were all very much near them. Like, I didn't give that many scores really low either. I think I had lots in the 7s, 8s, 6, that sort of range. I gave this one a 6. I gave the other Joe Satriani one a 7, so I actually rated the other one slightly higher.
Got some good groove, hasn't it? It's got good groove, Satch Boogie.
It does. I loved it. I'm going to give a reason. Like, 7's a good score. I'm going to give you a really bad reason that I've just made up why I gave this one a 6 instead of something higher. I give 5 points for the music, for the instrumental, and I give 5 points for the lyrics. Therefore, this one got 6 out of 5 for the instrumental because it's fucking cool, and 0 out of 5 for the lyrics because there aren't any. So 6 out of 10 is pretty good.
Well, yeah, I can't fault your reasoning.
It's mathematics. He can play guitar.
In 9th place, scoring a total of 47.5 points, it's the title track featured on the first disc of a double record from 1987. And the song is called Sign of the Times. It is Prince. It was actually almost written and designed as an experiment just to get used to the new sound on the instrument that he produced it with.
The Fairlight.
The Fairlight, yeah. He basically used it to just get used to the sounds, and he ended up producing a song that didn't just end up being the title track to Sign of the Times, but it was featured in configurations of other projects that he'd made at the time. The Dream Factory was the original final album by The Revolution that got shelved. But he kept the song from that project and made the concept album of Sign of the Times around that song. So it obviously meant a lot to Prince. He kept it in his set list for the rest of his life, played it in different styles. It's been covered by Muse, by Shaka Khan. It's one of the most sparse sounding, but incredibly, I feel it's completely timeless. Some people may argue that it sounds very, very aesthetically 80s, but I think
it's very much is a sign of the times, you know.
Hey, yeah.
Ooh, how did no one else come up with that?
Similar to hits like Kiss and When Doves Cry, in that it is very minimal and it is just a drum loop with the sparse guitar playing on it and the synths. The lyrics are still as appropriate today as they were in 1987, talking about gang violence. The AIDS epidemic is obviously not so much in the news, but there are similar things that have stemmed from that. It sounds incredibly throwaway for Prince as well. It's a big song with a lot of meaning behind it, but it's one of those songs where he sounds very distant. Even the music video doesn't have Prince in it. It's just a lyric video, which will become a lot more prominent now. So it was an early precursor to the YouTube lyric videos that you see. But it sounds very impersonal, alien, distant in terms of its sound quality and the lyrical content. and I just think it's incredible. I'm glad it made the top 10. And Sign of the Times itself is probably, if you push me, I think it's my favourite album of all time. Not necessarily the greatest. I think it's maybe not as good as Songs in the Key of Life, but it changes daily. This is not my favourite song. I did actually score. There were 5 Prince tracks that ended up being selected. I picked 3 of them, and I believe Martin, you picked Sign of the Times, and you got The Look. So this is actually your choice. The 3 that I picked are Door, Ballad of Dorothy Parker, and If I Was Your Girlfriend. If I Was Your Girlfriend, I think is an incredibly important single in terms of what would shape R&B in the early 90s. Well, maybe not the early 90s. I think the influence of that song was felt much later in the 90s. Adore, I think, is possibly the greatest love song of all time, in my opinion. The Ballad of Dorothy Parker, I think, is a weird accident of a song that I think is so compelling in terms of its storytelling. But this is the one that's been the most popular. It was the highest charting single from Sign of the Times. The singles from Sign of the Times, I don't think were maybe we've got I Could Never Take the Place of the Man of Your Man, which is actually on our undeniable banger list, which didn't make the 5 in this list, which is incredible for me. Sign of the Times and I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man are the 2 radio-friendly singles. If I Was Your Girlfriend, I think is incredible, but I don't think it's a big radio hit. So the singles from an album like Sign of the Times is a strange one, but I don't think you can deny that this has depth to it on a lot of different levels, and there's a lot of different things that can appeal to people. So, I mean, does somebody else want to take the reins to talk about Prince a little bit? Tom, go on, provide some counterbalance. Come on.
This is the song I rated the highest of the 5, and I think the thing I like about it is I think Prince has always been very obvious in his lyric writing. He doesn't often do lyrical subtlety.
No, I'll give you that.
Yeah, and that often turns me off when he's singing about sex. Which he does a lot.
And this one doesn't. So
this one doesn't. And I think I admire what he's trying to do with the lyrical content in this track. I think that he's kind of trying to touch too many bases. It comes across a bit like a political manifesto about this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. But I admire him for at least trying to do that. And I think the thing with this album is I actually do like the Sign of the Times album. But for example, the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, I scored really low because taken out of the context of the album, it's pretty awful. But in the context of the album,
terrible,
but in the context of the album, it works quite well because it's bookended between other things. So the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, it has no discernible structure.
No.
And often I quite like that, but usually a track with no discernible structure I like because there's a hook that comes back at some point and it doesn't have that.
No, the hook is the bass line, I think.
Yeah, and so it just travels. The Ballad of Dorothy Parker is taking you from the track before it to the track after it. And a lot of this album does that, and this is the one track on the album that really does, one of the tracks on the album that does stand on its own. So yeah, I admire I think his reach exceeds his grasp lyrically. I think considering he's only using the stock sounds on a now very dated synth, he manages to get it to sound quite good. Yeah, it's good, better in the context of the album.
Yeah.
I like this one the most because it felt the most like an actual releasable by itself standalone song.
Yeah, a single, yeah.
Yeah, it's very much the single song. You can definitely tell. I think the songs I didn't like that you put forward were it feels like Prince just wings it sometimes.
I think he probably did.
Like sometimes it just sounds like the other songs literally sound like they had a good backing track and he got in the booth and just made it up on the spot and then went on take number 10 and went, that's the one.
I think that was probably the process for a lot of his songs. This is a guy who recorded about 2 songs a day for 40 years.
It shows, like, I think, a lot of his stuff. Like, Prince has got so many good songs just because he's written so many 10 times more bad songs. You're going to catch lightning in a bottle at some point if you just you know, and to be honest, I think this sounds good as well, because Prince sounds better when he's reeling it in a bit. Like, when Prince starts doing his, like, high pitch, like, like it's going mad, that's when he's, for me, at his worst, because it just seems like absolute, it's just toss. It's the equivalent for vocals of what just guitar wangling is, you know, it's just, nah. But this song's good, I do like this song. I don't think I think I might have scored it lower than most. I think it's still got a pretty good score for me.
You scored it at 6.2. It's actually only 0.1 less than what Tom scored it, 6.3.
Yeah.
It's okay, it's a good song, but I don't know. I don't think I get Prince to the level you guys do. I just don't.
Which is why I'm determined to talk about him for so many episodes.
If you saw the other scores I gave the other tracks, Al, I think I don't get Prince either.
I don't quite understand the love.
And I mean, I think I was saying this before we were recording today, but like, I've listened to Sign of the Times as an album, and it was a few years ago now, but it's a great album. But I mean, 3 of these songs I thought were really poor. And I don't have that memory of when I listened to the album as an album of it having a load of poor songs on it. So I think it's literally, they work as an album, but they don't work on their own. But having said that, this song, Sign of the Times, it does work on its own. But yeah, and I agree with Alex that Prince seems to have just produced so much music that some of it's going to be good, and he's almost like the music equivalent of 1,000 monkeys on 1,000 typewriters for 1,000 years. Like they're going to produce something great. It's just going to take a bit of time and a lot of effort.
It was the best of times. It was the sign of the times.
I love that one.
How long have you been sat on that one?
It just came up when he mentioned the typewriters. Yeah.
Oh, Lenny, you are just a blurst.
Thanks, the blurst, yeah. I liked this one, and I liked Adore. I thought those were both the best out of the 5 that we chose. I'd not heard Adore previously, and that one stood out compared to the other 3, which I agree, I didn't really... I find, like they've said, that Prince has a lot, to me, as a non-Prince believer, a lot of, I'm going to be mean now and just say filler. That's how it feels to me. Just sort of, it exists purely because he had nothing else to do. But this song was well produced. It sounded great. I love the guitar sort of bit in between.
Kind of bluesy bits, yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So let's not think of the negative stuff I just said, and let's remember the good times. I scored this an 8.
The thing to remember, and I think that it's an important point. I think it's important that when I would describe a lot of stuff on a lot of albums as filler, but just because I would call it filler, you know, if you like that sound. So I love Godspeed You Black Emperor and argue there's no filler on any of their records, but then their records are only like 4 tracks long, and they're all 20 minutes long. But like Dan would listen to them and go, yeah, they've padded out the middle section with 6 minutes of noise. But the noise for me is part of the experience, whereas for somebody else, it's dragging them out of the experience. So I think it's, with Sign of the Times, it feels fairly filler heavy, but it's part of a groove and an overall feel that once you're in works, I guess. And that's why Dan loves it, because he likes the feel. I think Dan likes the feel of what Prince does. So a track that we would listen to and go, it's awful, for somebody who loves Prince, if it feels like Prince, Dan will probably still love it, because it feels comfortable, because it feels like what he loves. It's why people still buy Muse records, even though they're dog shit.
Have you heard the Muse cover of Sign of the Times?
No, not
recently.
It's
actually quite good. They probably did it about 10 years ago. Maybe not quite that far back, but maybe about 6 or 7 years
That
ago.
was long after I stopped caring about what that band did.
They did it for the Live Lounge sessions on Radio 1, and I was quite impressed by that cover. It's a difficult song to cover, I think, as well. Shaka Khan, I mentioned, had a go as well, and you can't really do anything other than copy it and add to it. I don't think it doesn't really work in, like, you couldn't I jinxed it now. John Lewis Christmas advert this year will be Sign of the Times acoustic now, won't it? But I don't think you could do an acoustic version of it, because it's built around the weird, like, synth sounds and the very, it sounds like a demo, but it's intentional. And if you take away any of the elements of that, I think it is missing that Prince feel if you do that. To add to what Tom was saying about the feel of a track, is Prince is somebody who is who his audience are Prince fans. So he was somebody who had a cult of personality as an artist. People follow him because of his status as an icon, as well as the musical. So a lot of bands that we talk about are strictly musicians and cultivate a musical following. You've got to remember with Prince as well, there's a pop following to it, and there's other artists that we may get onto later on that also have similar kind of pop aspirations. So when they release something, they've got two things in mind. Do they want to create something that's really experimental, or do they want to have something that's designed to get radio airplay? With Sign of the Times, what Prince had done is he'd taken a triple album, Crystal Ball it was called initially, after the Dream Factory, and then he's had to condense it by Warner Brothers Records, and made him condense it into a double album. So he's had to think about structure of where each song goes, and it really flows because he's had to work with a track list and really curate that track list. But then if you take those out, you're lacking all of the context in which that song is important. So yeah, it has the Prince feel, but it doesn't mean anything to anybody who isn't on that vibe as somebody who's anticipating a Prince album. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Tom. Any other thoughts?
This was my pick.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to chime in, Martin.
Everything you said about, like, Sign of the Times, the track, you already said it. So I don't really need to add anything to it other than, like, it was one of the most influential pieces of music that's ever been committed to tape.
I would agree with you. I'm not sure you'll get everybody on your side with that.
Have you ever heard The Boy That Cries Wolf, Martin? You're like that. Like, everything's the best, so we don't know if anything's the best anymore.
His nickname in the band is Martin Hyperbole for a reason.
Well, into 8th place now, and scoring exactly 48 points, is another one of my picks. And this is a song from the debut album from an artist who is formerly known as Terence Trent D'Arby, but is now known as Sananda Maitreya after an epiphany in, I think, the year 2000, where he was told that he needed to change his name to Sananda Maitreya because an angel told him to do so, and maybe not because Prince had also recently gone through a similar tactic to maybe regain some control of his record.
So he's a crazy person then. Okay.
The song is Dance Little Sister. It's from Introducing the Hardline, which is an incredible song.
Yes.
I especially love the 8-minute 36 12-inch version, but the version we're talking about presumably is the version on the album, about 4 minutes long. It's a funk song. It harkens back to James Brown in its energy. The album is kind of similar to that as well. He covers Who's Loving You by the Miracles at the end of the album in a fantastic style. I picked this song simply because I think it's... I mean, you can have... I could have gone for something like Sign Your Name or Wishing Well, but I think of the singles, this is the one that's the most accessible. The thing with Sananda Maitreya is I find him overly verbose in his lyricism. I find that he sees himself as a poet, and he is good with words, but it's very, very deep in terms of going into his later albums, the first album that he did is his go at pop. Now, he got into a lot of trouble when he released it because, well, in American with American audiences, he compared it to. He said he was going to be bigger than the Beatles before he'd even put out his debut.
How'd that work out?
Not well, but Introducing the Hardline is an incredible album. It's not my favourite of his albums. I think that he probably did better in '95 with Vibrator. There's a song on there called Holding On To You, which is one of my favourites of all time. But this is, for most people, the only thing that people remember, formerly Terence Trent D'Arby. It was his one go at mainstream attention. It's bold of him as well to go up against Sign of the Times, because there are a lot of Prince and Sananda Maitreya comparisons that were made. He certainly pulled it off. It's a great album. This is a fantastic single. What does anybody else have to say about this song?
Well, I'll chip in. Like, I think Dance Little Sister by Terence Trent D'Arby is fucking awesome. Just simply for that little guitar line.
Yeah, that was good.
Fuck me, man. Like, I just think it's perfect. I think it's perfect in every way. It's the perfect funk song. It really is. It makes you feel good. It's like, you know, the guitars are great. The bass is fucking amazing. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
I sort of like it all, apart from the chorus.
I was similar, actually.
I think it's a bit simple. Kind of just it's a bit easy. It's like, yeah, the rest of it, the guitar, the saxophone, love the saxophone. Even the lyrics, like in the lead up to the chorus, all the other bits are quite interesting and quite in depth and entertaining. But yeah, the chorus, I don't know, it just leaves me going.
I think Dan's right.
Chorus is absolutely amazing. It's just like, it doesn't take away from the verse at all whatsoever, which is like.
But it doesn't add either. Like, I personally think I'm with Dan. I think the chorus could have been a bit stronger, but everything else is brilliant.
How could you make it stronger? It's just a straight through great funk song. It doesn't, like, the chorus doesn't need to be bigger. It just does what it does. It's perfect.
We've gone from saying the chorus is amazing to it doesn't have to be that good. What is it, Martin?
Well, I think to kind of add to that, it is the simplicity of the song compared to a lot of his other songs that works in this instance. So I think that the chorus being simple,
totally works. It's so James Brown. It's
especially the 12-inch version with there's a false stop on it.
I mean, if you like funk, you're going to love this song. If you think funk's okay, you're still going to like it because it's still pretty good. It's a good funk song. I liked it.
I love funk, so, you know, whatever. I fucking adore funk, so, like, you know. Yeah.
I'm just looking at my notes on this one because I wrote notes and I listened to everyone's picks in order, and I listened to this towards the end of Dan's picks. And I've written, the first note I've written is, thank God some real fucking instruments. It's the first note I wrote.
I could listen to this song. If this song lasted for 12 days, I would listen to it. It's just fucking gorgeous. It's just great.
So I liked it. I gave it a decent score. There's one other comment I made on it, that he's copying at some points. He's not the only person. I don't want to mention there's another person on this list who does it as well, and I made the same comment on there. They're copying Michael Jackson's vocal inflections, the sort of the hee-hees and stuff going on.
He did. I noticed he did that.
Yeah, he does it, and it really dragged me out of it. It really dragged me out. I was like, I just wrote like that. It really threw me. It's copying those like Michael Jackson inflections. That's the only thing I didn't like about it.
Needed more Shamones, didn't it?
Dropping in those sort of Michael Jackson inflections just didn't work for me. But apart from that, I like the rest of it.
As a guitar player, I could play that guitar line all day, every day, just constantly, and be totally happy. I just find this song so fucking like upbeat and like it just puts me in a really, really happy place. It's a great tune.
Yeah, as a riff, it's up there with like Superstition, isn't it?
Absolutely. I wish I was the guitar player on
I
this.
agree with Martin. It's like it's so close to a perfect punk funk. Nearly said a perfect punk song, perfect funk song. The chorus could be better, but I feel we're clutching at straws. It's a great song.
I was slagging it off and gave it a 7 out of 10, so I wasn't that harsh, really.
Getting higher on the list now as we go into 7th position with 48.1, so just 0.1 ahead. It is the title track, again, very popular this evening, from a British solo act who just come off the back of being one of the world's biggest artists in Wham. It is George Michael, and it is the classic Faith. This is actually not my pick, even though I'm a big George Michael fan. This is actually Dan's.
No way.
I couldn't not nominate Kissing a Fool, which is one of my favourite songs of all time. But I can see why it wasn't ranked as highly as this. It's one of those that has personal meaning. But Faith is just a pop classic. It opens with the organ playing Freedom by Wham. And then he announces himself onto the scene with that iconic riff that still does make me think of Vic Reeves in a mask doing Stars in Their Eyes from Smell of Each
My favourite fucking sketch ever.
I also hesitate to nominate this ahead of other songs on the album because of the Limp Bizkit connotations, so I thought I'd get that out of the way.
Hey, whoa.
Limp Bizkit version's better. Still stand by it.
It's a shame we weren't doing
It is better. It's better.
Fred Durst's greatest
Limp
hits,
Bizkit version's
but
better.
this song is really good. The Limp Bizkit version or not.
Sorry, I think I gave this song a low score because I've actually come to the thought now. I don't actually like this song that much. I don't think it's that good. Chucking out there. It's it's you know what good would be. It's less than that. It's.
I love how that's just.
I've never. I think I scored it okay because I've heard it 1,000 times and I will sing along. I'm a bit pissed at the pub, but I don't know. I've always found that it just, as a whole, underwhelming. Like just the acoustic and the drums. I felt like they could have played another 3 or 4 instruments to round out the sound a bit more. Maybe the subtlety is what makes it good.
I think it would be overproduced if there was anything more on it.
The chorus is a bit bland. Gotta have faith.
How is that bland?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's an earworm that everybody still remembers 35 years later. Everybody knows that as George Michael. Self-explanatory. Nobody needs to look up the lyrics or go, oh, what was that song again? Everybody knows it. It's just there. It's one of those cultural artifacts that just feels like it's always
as a cultural artifact, like everyone kind of agrees that it's pretty good. But as a guy who's just listened to it again recently, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna put an onion in the old ointment and say it's not as good as you guys all remember. I reckon if it came out now, it wouldn't even get the top 50.
You're wrong.
Well, that's to be fair, that's probably true. But then George Michael's had a lot of controversy since then.
I don't like George Michael, it seems, because I listened to the other one you put on. I thought that was shocking.
I've got to be honest.
Maybe I just don't like George Michael that much.
Monkey, the one you put on, was terrible.
There was a really bad one, but there was also a
Monkey
really good
was
one.
an interesting choice because Martin nominated Monkey, but
really bad.
I think what you may have meant was the
Sorry, Martin.
was the
Jam and Lewis
remix, which is actually what I scored the album version, and I scored it quite low as well. I scored it at 5.9. It's the worst song on the album for me, but the Jam and Lewis remix is great. They really made that song pop, but I think everybody's listened to the album version, which is, quite dull. Especially when you contrast it with something like Faith, which is really urgent. It's like 3 minutes 16 or something. So Austin 3:16 says, you've got to have faith.
I know, I prefer all of the Wham singles to Faith.
Oh, no.
Wait me up before you go,
Some of them. Yeah, I love that song.
That's fair.
Everything She Wants is a classic, and so is there's lots of songs that I love. Club Tropicana.
That's a better song. Yeah.
Careless Whisper. That's George Michael solo, really.
That's a better song.
Yeah, but they're not from 1987, are they?
Where Does Slime Live? Better. This is way
we
better
had a
than songs
limitation.
like
It had to be from that year or just about. I've got to be honest, the one thing when I was re-listening to it, so I picked this without even listening to it because I just know that I like the song because it's a song that everyone knows. That's why it was on my list. And then re-listening to it again yesterday, his lyrical performance wasn't what I was expecting. It was a bit raspier than I was remembering it. I almost imagined it being more ballady, and it wasn't that, and that surprised me. So Go back and have a listen if you haven't listened to it in a while, and it might surprise you too, dear listener.
Yeah, there were a few songs on this list which don't sound like I remember them sounding. Like there's a Michael Jackson one that's on this list somewhere, which I remember sounding freaking massive as a kid, and then I listened to it again and I'm like, it's not massive. And this is one of those where I'm like you, I remembered it being more ballady, but actually listening to it back to it, the slight raspiness on the vocals, it's a delivery. It's a similar delivery style to Prince's delivery style, but actually done better than Prince's vocal, I think. And Dan got back just in time to hear that and disagree with it.
You put me in a very uncompromising situation because I have a George Michael tattoo and I have a Prince tattoo, and now you're suddenly I sit down and I'm confronted with who's a better vocalist in the peak of their career, Prince or George Michael. I'm gonna have to say George Michael. George Michael's a better vocalist. Yes, he is. He probably has my favourite timbre of all time. Like, there's something in his voice that I find irresistible. That I love all of his pop hits. I mean, even if you go as far as like 2006 when he did Any Easier Affair.
You're making him choose between Kevin Allen and Mark Bircham as his favourite people of all time.
Kevin Allen.
There's like two QPR legends or two of his favourite singers of all time. You're being really cruel to him here.
It's like asking me to pick Aerith or Tifa. Actually, it's Tifa.
She doesn't die.
Exactly, see, it's easy.
Well, I did answer your question. I said I went for George Michael.
You did.
George Michael, in the notes for the 2011 remastered version of Faith, is an in-depth interview with George Michael on how he made the album. And very prominent in his mind was Hot Thing by Prince. He's definitely kind of emulating the similar style, but because of the fact that it's George Michael's voice and that was his primary instrument, he's a better vocalist. Prince had a wider range of talents for me. I think that Prince is an incredible vocalist, but I don't think that his highs are quite as good as George Michael's. There you go. And we'll move on to the next song, though, because in sixth position, with 49 points, Son, You've Just Been Rickrolled.
Yeah!
And it's the debut single recorded by another English singer and songwriter, Rick Astley. We've talked about this song on the podcast before. We are not Rickrolling you. This genuinely scored that highly. It's one of Al's picks, produced by Stock Aitken and Waterman from the album Whenever You Need Somebody. It's the 2008 Best Act Ever and the inception of the perennial Rickrolling internet meme, It's Never Going to Give You Up.
How did this get that high when you know what... You saw what I scored this, right?
Tom, this is the most perfect pop song of all time. I will say that. I don't think there's any song that's more of an earworm than this song. And I don't think there's anyone realistically... You might say it's cheesy, you might say it's very much of its time, but it's just that good. I fucking love it. I've heard this song a million times, and it's never once got old. I could hear it on Heart FM every day, and I'd still enjoy it every time. It's just one of those songs. I don't know why. He found lightning in a bottle.
I used to go on internet message boards and click on links, hoping I was about to be rickrolled because I just loved it so much. It's like, you know, when you'd be like, back in the day on the old internet when it was, I don't know, 05 to 09, whatever it was. And this was constantly going on. And you would click on a link and half the time it would be Rick Astley. And you know what? The half the time it wasn't, I was disappointed because it's such a good
it would
song.
be that mix of emotions. I love this. You've been tricked into clicking a link that you thought would be something exciting. But then also it was Rick Astley, so it was
Even
great
better.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we have covered this song a lot on the podcast. We've talked about it at length before. I love it. It gets better every time I listen to it, I think.
I think that's true. I think it's really true. It's an important song.
There you go, Al. You finally come around.
The influence of this song is...
I just do what you guys do. I just find a song I like and start chucking around important.
The correct verbiage.
It's just important.
You're officially a music critic now. There you go.
Well, it's culturally important in the 2000s, but not in 1987.
I don't know. It's pretty big in 1987.
What I love about the whole phenomenon with Never Gonna Give You Up is just Rick Astley's... He's taken it like an absolute champ. Rick Astley's on, like, adverts for Guardians of the Galaxy, the video game. He's had a moderately successful career. He's not a one-hit wonder. He had a couple of other hits, including She Wants to Dance With Me, Cry for Help, is I've mentioned before, is one of my favourites.
I think with Rick Astley, though, it's a lot of people now ironically like him. Which is why he's on Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. He's basically, he even knows it himself.
Yes.
Everyone's just mildly taking the piss with it.
That's the key part. He plays up to it without it ever feeling like we're laughing at Rick Astley. Rick Astley's in on the joke. That's what makes the difference. He's ridden the success of it, and I just think he always comes across well.
I'd compare that to James Blunt.
Yes.
Because I think he's very much the same way. But this song stands the test of time, which is why Rick Astley is almost still relevant, whereas James Blunt is now just a Twitter meme.
Yeah.
This song is good enough for him to still be meaningful.
Yeah, I agree. The production's incredible.
And that's the difference between the two.
I think it's the best single that Stock Aitken and Waterman did produce of this era. I mean, you could argue You Spin Me Round Like a Record, or possibly even from this year. Mel and Kim's Respectable, I think, is incredible, but ultimately it didn't make the list.
You Spin Me Right Round has always been ruined by meatspin.com.
I was going to say that, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Anybody got anything to add to the conversation about Never Gonna Give You Up, or Rick Astley, or?
I think we've talked about him a lot in I feel like every other podcast we go deep diving on Rick Astley. So I don't think we need too much. I think we talk about him a weird amount.
I think we should deep dive on Rick Astley every episode.
If I win, we're doing a top 10 Rick Astley songs. That's what
Number
we're doing.
9.
So,
There are more. There are 10 Rick Astley songs.
Never Gonna Give You Up Again.
We'll move on into the top 5 now. Because in 5th position, 0.4 points ahead with 49.4, is one of the most famous songs on the list. I would maybe hazard a guess to say it is. The song is from the multi-million selling album Bad. It is, of course, Michael Jackson, and the song that has emerged victorious in Michael Jackson selections is Man in the Mirror, which is one of Martin's picks. It's certainly a song that I've always known, and I can probably sing it word for word without the musical accompaniment. It was co-written with Sieda Garrett, R&B singer, who was involved in his live performances a lot as well. I think she worked with him as a backing vocalist, and she's a talented artist in her own right. Her 2003 cover, well, it's not a cover, it's her original song as well, but her version is incredible. But the Michael Jackson, it's one of those most, I think it may be, I've got in my notes here that it's perhaps Michael Jackson's most ticked version of himself, because he does all the hits on this. So he's got the hee-hees, he's got a shaman, all the owls. It's like somebody turned Michael Jackson up to 11. And over the years, I think my appreciation for the song has decreased as a result of that. I think it is I sometimes listen to it and think of it as being a bit cliche. But I can't deny it's incredibly well written, incredibly well crafted. It's every bit of it is recorded and produced so well. There's something about Michael Jackson. We talked about this with Earth Song, and his use of like synth bass lines to really hook you into like a big choir effect. And this is the first time he did it in his career. And I think I said on that episode, I think he never bettered it. He never bettered it than when he did it on Man in the Mirror. So yeah, Martin, this is your pick. Talk us a bit through about your reasoning for Man in the Mirror being on this list.
It's just very, very like honest and open, and just like kind of like a man who has realized that he has to make some choices in his life to make his own life a better thing, and he's doing that. And musically, Dan, you've already said everything I need to say. I just think it's fucking gorgeous.
It's inspirational in that it makes you think you could do that. You know, you don't just think
really
it's impossible.
Well. Yeah.
I wonder if you guys listen. I wonder if you guys listened back to this, because I listened back to it and I remember this track sounding massive when I was a kid. I remember it being like this massive thing, and we had it on in, like, we sang this in our school, in my primary school choir, and they used to have it blaring on the PA, and I remember it sounding huge. I listened back to it and the production's aged really badly. It doesn't sound massive anymore. Listening back to it again, it doesn't sound like I remember it sounding. And I didn't score it. I mean, I scored it based on the chorus and I gave it a 5.4.
Yeah, well, I scored it massively because it emotionally touched me, and that's all I give a fuck about, to be fair. I know it isn't massive. I know it doesn't sound as huge as it could have done, but that's not the point. It is a really wonderful piece of art, and the fucking vocal melody is amazing. So that's why it's important to me. That's why it is why I chose it, because I don't know. At the end of the day, it's it made me feel happy.
Oh, thoughts on Man in the Mirror?
I like this song. I really like Michael Jackson. I think Bad's better. I don't. As far as the singles go, it's one of his more iconic ones, but I think it's one of my. Well, I think it's really, really good. But on the Michael Jackson scale, I find it's a bit lower than a lot of his other singles. So it's good. Not one of his best for me, perfectly honest. But I think it's a good song. That's it really. There's not really much to say about Michael Jackson. I like. Unless he's got George McCartney on with him, I quite like every one of his songs.
George McCartney.
George McCartney. Paul McCartney. George McCartney.
George McCartney was an Irish footballer.
The fact check is going haywire here.
Knowledge.
It's because I used to sign George McCartney for my Football Manager football team.
I knew that was coming. Jim, Dan, anything else on Man in the Mirror?
Yeah, no, it's a bit too ballady compared with a lot of Michael Jackson's other, and in my view, better songs for me. But it's a solid song. It's decent. It's just not as good as those other songs.
That's why I think I prefer it to Bad or even Thriller. I like the balladiness. I mean, he's got other ballady songs which are not as good.
I like Earth Song better than this.
This song, you're wrong.
This conversation.
To be honest, then we can just get Tom off the ball at this point because he's just invalidated everything he said. Like this is my favourite Michael Jackson song, I would say.
Good man, Dan.
The other choice that we had that didn't make the list was Smooth Criminal.
Because the Alien Ant Farm version is so much better.
It is.
I knew that was going to be my response.
No, it isn't. It's very bad.
As soon as I mentioned it, so we're gonna move on from that because in fourth position, scoring 49.6. This is actually one of Tom's picks and is one of the biggest surprises of the evening because this song was released as a single and an EP in the UK, and it's a song from the compilation Warehouse Songs and Stories. It's Could You Be the One by Husker Du.
Oh, yes!
Really?
Oh, this is a good song.
It's a cracking song.
This is a good song.
Yeah.
You can see where a lot of 90s rock music comes from this record. So Tom, take it away.
This is the 1987 equivalent of Slint making the 1991 list, isn't it? where I throw a curveball that half of them haven't heard of, and it makes the list.
Never heard of it.
One of the greatest bands of all time.
Husker Du are fantastic. I discovered Husker Du in 1997 or 98 because my piano teacher used to come around. I used to get piano lessons on a Sunday morning, and my piano lessons would be 4 hours long, and he'd bring round records and we'd go through them. And I played him the new Idlewild record. I think it must have been Hope is Important. I must have played him that, so it must have been 97, 98, sometime around then. And he listened to it and he went, this sounds like Husker Du. And he brought round a load of Husker Du vinyls. And they start off punk and then go a bit mellower, and this album is their last album, and it's really it's got a lot more mellow stuff. And then this song is almost like a really heavy metal band doing an REM song sped up. Up until listening to the tracks again, this was my favourite of my picks, and I really wanted it to make the top 15, but I did not imagine it going in at number 3.
Number 4.
Number four.
It almost
Whatever.
reminded me of Bad Religion a little bit.
Yeah,
I think I kind of
100%.
got that vibe from them. I never heard this. It's amazing. I want to listen to a lot more of Husker Du.
You need to. They are, I hate to use the phrase, but they are considered to be a very important band.
They're one of the most important alternative rock bands of all time. Literally. If you like alternative rock, you need to listen to Husker Du.
If you ask 90s musicians when they were starting out who their influences were, Kurt Cobain was a fan of Husker Du. They're the musicians. They weren't mainstream. They weren't even really a cult act. They've just got this legendary status as being a lot of bands' favourite band that nobody's heard of. And they do have quite a good body of work. Zen Arcade, I believe, is an earlier album of theirs, which is incredible. That's worth checking out.
Yeah, that's their second album.
I like punk music, so I should have way more experience listening to Husker Du than I do, to be honest. I'm just going to say I really like the song. I like up-tempo, catchy, solid riffs.
I'm in the same boat as Alex. I definitely should have listened to Husker Du before, and I know Tom has been telling me about Husker Du for years and that I should listen to Husker Du, and I've never listened to him because that's what I do. I let Tom tell me to listen to bands, and then I don't listen to the bands, and then eventually I listen to the bands, and I say, Tom, why didn't you force me to listen to that band? Because it's a great band. But yeah, Husker Du are one of those bands.
They are fucking incredible.
Yeah. And I'm going to listen to more of them because I love this song. And it's like a Dinosaur Jr. song, but played by a
Dinosaur
different
Jr.
band.
Yeah, there you go.
Dinosaur Jr. were also nominated for this list, but I
Yes.
highly doubt
I wasn't going to mention that bit. I wasn't going to mention that bit.
Let's get into the top three.
they won't make the top three.
They're number one, aren't they?
I doubt it.
In third position and scoring a grand total of 51.6 points. It's one of Martin's picks. I think the best way to introduce this song is by saying that it's the best-selling 12-inch single of all time. It's an incredibly influential piece of music that would lead to the opening of new styles of music. But it's by primarily by what were first a rock band, another English act. It's New Order, and this song is Blue Monday.
Yes.
It is just one of the best dance floor classics of all time. And yes, sometimes I think that it hasn't aged as well as a lot of 90s dance music, later 90s dance music. And it is definitely a product of its time, but you can't deny the legacy that this track really has. Everything around it, the kind of artwork with the colour codings, it's all very mysterious. It was actually released in 1983, but featured on the 1987 compilation album Substance, which is why it's eligible for this list. It's only a few years removed from them being Joy Division and making post-punk. A post-punk band that within the space of a few years go on to make one of the most enduring dance songs of all time, I think is nothing to be sniffed at. And this is an incredible piece of music.
And these guys are main offenders for the 80s white guy singing, like I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
My notes here do say that it feels like it's held together with sellotape. The tension that it could all fall apart at any time is what makes the song really good. It shouldn't work, really. If you think about it, in terms of what it has to offer, you've got a weird Peter Hook bass line that's out of their post-punk days. It's got this weird 10cc I'm Not in Love style human synth voice that's pumping in the background. Absurdly primitive drum machines, really shit lyrics, but they somehow really pop with the amateur delivery of Bernard Sumner. It feels like it's held together by a really thin thread. It could fall apart at any time, but that's what makes it so exciting.
It's a good song.
Sounds a bit like a shed version of Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
I think that's what I actually wrote in my notes was it's got a very obvious Kraftwerk influence, but with a few little flourishes on the top. And it's like, it almost doesn't sound like a band's made it.
Yeah, it could have been produced by Shep Pettibone or somebody like that.
Yeah, except that It doesn't sound like the other synth pop that was around at the same sort of time.
It's not melody driven like, Erasure or Aha.
Blue Monday was played on Top of the Pops in 1983. I just don't think it's in the spirit of it that it should be on this list.
That's true. Al, you scored it the lowest with a 6.2.
It's pretty good, but it's not like... it's a very, very select list.
Martin.
Blue Monday started careers of so many bands. Can we mix rock with dance? Oh, what a fucking crazy idea. And they did. I don't think there's a song that has had such an impact on music like Blue Monday.
Martin likes it a lot.
Yeah.
In second place...
We've got you too.
It might be you too.
Just missing out on top spot. Well, actually, it's a little bit of a difference. This scored 52.2, and it is another one of Martin's picks. Another highly influential group, another highly influential album. It's described as one of this particular group's signature songs from New York hip-hop group The Beastie Boys. It's the 6th single from their debut studio album, License to Ill, and it is the imperious No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Probably one of my least favourite Beastie Boys albums, one of my least favourite Beastie Boys songs, but the fact that this song exists, and I'm so glad it does, because, like, it's the Beastie Boys, man.
Martin does make a compelling point. It is the Beastie Boys. And
it is certainly the Beastie Boys. That fact has certainly been checked.
I fucking love this song.
I love it, and it's Kerry King's guitar is awesome.
I didn't even know Kerry King played guitar on this.
You didn't?
Oh, no wonder I love it so much.
It's Kerry King playing the guitar, and the main riff is a reimagining of TNT by AC/DC.
Yeah, I get that.
I scored this the lowest out of everyone, by the way. I scored it at 6.7. I scored it lower than I scored Fight for Your Right to Party. But my notes are conflicted because I do think that the lyrics to No Sleep Till Brooklyn are far better than the lyrics to Fight to Your Right to Party. I just don't think that it's quite as bombastic. I don't know. There's something really spirited about Fight for Your Right to Party. It captures a certain spirit.
Right, this is like the Beastie Boys at their worst.
Yes, I agree.
Either of these songs is as good as Sabotage, but you know.
Did you know what? I'm going to say it now. I think Sabotage is a little overrated. I'm going to say it now.
Get over yourself.
I like the song. I really like it, but I prefer the more rappier stuff.
Both things can be true.
I like this better than I like Sabotage.
I do too.
Well, but neither of those songs are as good as Intergalactic.
I would agree.
They only got better. They only got more and more creative and better and amazing.
I agree.
And that's why I think I love it so much. I think I love early Beastie Boys because they were just idiots.
Yeah, this feels almost novelty compared to the later records. But somehow it still ends up being the second best song of 1987, according to us.
They just got better and better and more mature and more woke and they became just an incredible band, like one of the most influential bands of all time. They started out doing this bullshit, you know what I mean? Like, fucking hell, man.
I'm not going to go as far to say it's bullshit. I'm going to go as far to say this song's really, really good, so shut your face.
I'm with Al. I like this.
Yeah, well, why did you nominate this, Martin?
It's really good song.
I had to nominate the Beastie Boys. It was 87,
This came second because of what Tom said. It was at the beginning. It's not offensive to anyone, is it? That's why it scored highly amongst everyone.
For a hip-hop song as well, that goes a long way.
It's basically just their first, because obviously "Fight for Your Right" was their first big single, and it kind of broke them. But it's quite that song. I do really like that song, but it's very like frat party.
Yeah.
You know that song, isn't it? And to be honest, I think I know what mine means because a lot of their first album is like that. It's kind of like just like broing out sort of party music, and this song is a bit like it. But I think this is the first single where they rapped more, if you know. It felt less like just hype music, and it felt like they were actually rapping more, and it was actually more of a song behind it, if you know what I mean. And I think that's why this scored higher than "Fight for Your Right," just because of that. It's a bit more of a serious song, despite not being serious. It's just more in the direction they kind of went in towards the end.
Yeah, it's more hip hop based than punk based. We're down to our last song.
Can't believe we're right at the end and there's so many good songs left that haven't been done. Crazy, Crazy Nights by Kiss.
Oh yeah, that song
that hasn't even been mentioned. They got 3 possible Guns N' Roses songs. Obviously, the best one being the one I nominated, Paradise City. In case you didn't know, it's not going to be any of those. I'm kind of hoping it's going to be Starship. Nothing's going to stop us now. That's what I hope. But I don't want it to be U2 because I hate U2, even though that song is good.
It's going to be You Suffer by Napalm Death.
God, I hope it's that.
I may have brought the average down. For those who don't know, Napalm Death's You Suffer is 1.316 seconds long, so I gave it a 1.316 out of 10.
That's just stupid and vindictive.
Accurate.
I'm still holding out hope that it'll be one of the 3 Swans songs that I know.
It is their Swan song.
but I somehow doubt that. I think this was one of your picks, Wettel, but I love this song so much. I'm hoping it's that, because it's not been mentioned yet. But Steve Hurley, Jack Your Body, I'd love it if that's the best one.
I thought that song was trash.
Yeah, it's a fucking tune.
Let's put
It was a 5 out of 10 at best.
It made me want to go to the gym and jack my body. That's how much I loved it.
It just sounded like a CD was skipping.
So let's put everybody out of their misery, shall we? The top score tonight, 53.9 points, so very high scores from everybody. The lowest anybody scored it was 8.4.
Not U2.
Oh, it's not U2 then.
This is a wonderful song. It is the 3rd single released from the 1987 album Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
Oh, I've got
It's one of Martin's picks. And the greatest song of 1987 is Just Like Heaven by The Cure.
The Cure!
Yeah. It's only the best song on the album.
I scored it the lowest.
Nobody has mentioned it all evening.
I nearly mentioned it. I'd give it a 9.
Yeah.
One of the most remarkable songs. One that every time I listen to it, it gets better. Like a lot of other songs on this list, to be fair. But in this sense, there's something new to discover every time you listen to it. My notes aren't too comprehensive on it. I did put it is a masterpiece. That's the first thing I wrote. I love the third person narrative that they start off. Robert Smith starts the song with. It really feels intangible. It's like a fairy tale, but there's this gloomy kind of guitar contrasted with some really hopeful synths. There's a really a sense of urgency in the beat. It's not very long. It's only a 3-4 minute song, and it just says everything that it needs to say. I think it's a staggering piece of work, and it's not until I sat and listened to it for the purpose of reviewing it for this episode, that I realised how good Just Like Heaven by The Cure is. So what does everybody else have to say about this song?
I've got a quick confession to make. I think I was rushing through the scoring when I got to this song, and I thought it was Friday I'm in Love, but it's not Friday I'm in Love. It's a different song that sounds exactly the same as Friday I'm in Love.
Both good songs.
I scored this the lowest. I still scored it a good score for me because I scored everything quite low by the look of it. But the thing I find with this song is it's by no means The Cure's best song, and it's by no means their best work. I mean, it's still great. This song sounds like the blueprint for the sound they perfected on Disintegration. Because which is by far
that's my favourite Cure record as well.
Yeah, it's Disintegration. It's very hard to argue that they've made a better album than Disintegration.
Cure fans would agree with you. Yeah.
The thing with this is the difference between this and Disintegration, and the reason why. So Disintegration is probably virtually every track on that is a 10 for me. The reason being is that those songs have got more recognisable choruses, whereas on this one, the chorus is a guitar line, which is still cool. The reason I'm saying it is Robert Smith can write amazing choruses, and then on this song, he doesn't. Now, it's a deliberate choice on his part, and it works really, really well, and I can definitely get behind it. But it's, yeah, I love the vibe of it. It's got a lovely vibe.
I kind of get that. It's all about the vibe. It's about the just getting with the groove and the feeling of the song.
Oh, I think what Will said was very true. It's like a fairy tale. It's it's good. It's good. It's just good. I just like The Cure. This is one of the Cure singles.
We love The
liked
Cure,
every
don't we?
Cure single I've heard. That's the kind of what it is. You could have, put any Cure song from that year on and I'd have been like, yeah, amazing, 8 out of 10 at least. They're just really good, and it's like with a few of these songs, they just happen to be one of those bands that we all unanimously agree that are pretty good. It managed to be that perfect genre where everyone kind of likes it.
I would say it's an undeniable banger.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is exactly what Tom said the number one would be at the start of this podcast. Like it's not a song that all of us love. It's a song that all of us think is good and no one thinks is shit.
Exactly.
Like that's what this song is. And for that reason I don't think it's an undeniable banger, but it's a very good song.
But I think you could argue Pictures of You was.
We're not going to.
Don't even get me started on that, Tom.
No.
That's why I wouldn't make this an undeniable banger, because I'd prefer to put another Cure song there instead. That's it. That'd be the only reason.
I really like it. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's one that I was going to choose myself, but it had already been picked by Martin. So that was where I was coming from with it. I rated it higher than some of the ones I picked myself, if that makes sense. I didn't give all of mine 10s, like some people. My only thought on it is not that it won. I'm actually, when you said it, I was almost relieved. I kind of felt like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's like a nice choice that everybody would agree on. And we hadn't even mentioned it because it sort of just quietly went under the radar, being awesome. And then it came out and won. I'm really pleased with that. I'm almost less pleased with some of the bottom half of our list now in reflection. You know what I mean? I look at some of the songs that weren't in our 15, and it surprises me when songs like the Bad Penny or whatever it was called, and a few other kind of all right songs got in, and we've not got Paradise City.
One, Welcome to the Jungle's better, so I don't know why you picked Paradise City. And two, why the fuck isn't Anthrax caught in a mosh in this top 10? You guys,
It sounds like it was recorded in a
You guys
cave.
can all eat a fucking
I gave
dick.
it a 9 actually, Al. So
Worthy
there you go.
winner, I think. The Cure, but Just Like Heaven. I think, as people have said, it's one of those songs that not everybody thinks is their favourite. Martin accepted, probably, but it's one of those that is good enough that it's going to please everybody, and that is similar to how Massive Attack was the top song of 1991 with Unfinished Sympathy. It's one of those that everybody appreciates, no matter what genre you're into. It's got something that for everybody, and it's deep enough that it resonates with people that listen to more than just pop singles, but it's also radio friendly enough that it succeeds as a mainstream chart success as well. And I think that's why it's here. That was our list of top songs of 1987. What remains to be seen, though, is Martin, as you have selected tonight's winner, you get to pick the next episode's theme. What are we going to be covering next time on the Cacophony Sessions podcast?
Here we go. Early 90s hip-hop tracks.
Okay, that could be a really good episode. So we'll wrap up here. That's been another episode of the Cacophony Sessions. We hope we've provided you with something that shocked you or outraged you enough to hit us up on Twitter at CacSessionsPod. Go to the blog, cacophonysessions.wordpress.com. Follow us on YouTube, all the other social media platforms. We'll be returning with our study of early 90s hip-hop in the next time out. Until then, better damn well make sure that you stay funky. People can say goodbye.
Oh,
Here we go.
Ciao.
They just drift out into the ether.
They can't hear us waving.
No, they can. Hold on. Did you hear that?
It might sound like he's jacking himself off.
God, I hate our outros so much sometimes.
Nothing's going to stop us now. Was robbed.